12 months. Meaning what? It could start in April and end in March the next year. It can start in July and end in June the next year. It can start in October and end in September the next year. Most importantly, it will have 12 months. So what it shares in common, with a calendar year is they both have 12 months. So you should be very clear now on what is a fiscal year and what is a calendar year. They are generally referred to as the financial year. So in Vietnam, bắt buộc, you have no choice. You follow the calendar year. But outside of Vietnam, companies can elect on what is their fiscal year. Is this clear or not clear? All right, so you should already know that. And if I were to divide the year, you should know how to divide them by month, by quarter, by half year, and annual. It's very obvious. Okay, I don't need to tell you that. I think most of you know. What is a quarter? How many months make a quarter?
3.
Yes. How many months make a half year?
6.
Okay, so sometimes half year, another word for it is semi-annual. Yeah, annual means a 12-month period. Semi-annual means a 6-month period. Another word for it is half yearly and yearly. All right, so you already know that. Okay, this slide is very important because accountants use what is called the accrual basis of accounting. Now you see another word there is called cash basis of accounting. So let's go back to history, okay? Vietnam, as you know, for many years was actually under Chinese control. Yeah, at least you have a shared history, meaning you're constantly fighting with each other. Okay, but most of the administrative systems that Vietnam has assumed today is actually following the Chinese administrative system. So right until the early 1990s, yeah, China and Vietnam had one thing in common. They both did their accounting on a cash basis. What do I mean by that? It means they only recognize revenue and expenses when cash is received or when cash is paid. Okay, but given the requirements for them to integrate with the rest of the world, as Vietnam opened up its economy to foreign investors, they begin to realize that it's important to follow what everybody else in the world is doing. And what is that? Accrual basis of accounting. Now, with accrual basis of accounting, the only difference is in accrual basis of accounting, they don't worry about whether cash is collected or cash is paid. They are more interested to know, did I earn the income and did I incur the expense? So we focus on timely reporting of transactions because it recognizes sometimes I might earn the income today, I might only collect it tomorrow. So I cannot wait until tomorrow to record the income. This is for the income side. And for the expense, I don't wait until I pay to record the expense, simply because my emphasis is to record transactions as they occur in the correct time period. If the transaction happened in July, I don't wait to record it in September when I collect the money. It doesn't work that way. So I will record the receivable today in July because it will be received in September. Likewise, I will not record the payment to an expense in September if I actually incurred the expense in July. Why? Because I want to record revenue and expense in the correct time period. So time is extremely important for accountants, which is why I expect everybody to be in the class by 8 o'clock. You understand? I mean, to me, I always follow time to the T. Start and break, everything has to follow time. it gives us some discipline. You understand what I mean? So if you plan to be an accountant, you need to have 3 qualities. 1, you need to be very good with number. 2, you must have very good timing. And 3 is what? 3 is what? You have to be honest. You understand what I mean? If you have no ethics, very difficult, because accountant is very powerful job in any organization. Yeah, you understand? So you need to make sure that you are planning to be an accountant. You need to make sure you need to have certain characteristics. But the reason why we follow accrual basis of accounting is simply because that is the international accounting standard. And Vietnam is now integrated with the rest of the world, so everybody follows the accrual basis of accounting. Are we clear on this or not? Okay, so in the future when you're doing your exams, you must know the difference between cash basis and accrual basis of accounting. Yeah? The difference is cash basis of accounting, you only record when you receive and when you pay. Yeah? But in accrual, we must record both cash and non-cash transactions. So most of the time, under the accrual basis of accounting, we will always have a correct and complete financial statement, because it records all the transactions. You understand what I mean? Cash or non-cash. Clear or not clear? Okay, so this is a very important slide. Next one, under the cash basis, I already told you, we don't worry about whether income is earned or expense is incurred. We only record when received and paid. So again, when I only record when it's received and paid, I may not be having the measurement of income in the correct time period. Meaning what? I may record, I may have the revenue in July, but I may only receive in September. I might have paid the expense in July, so there will be a mismatch between revenue and expenses. So to avoid that, everybody is adopting the accrual basis of accounting. Is this clear or not clear? Alright, so you need to know what is the difference between accrual and cash basis of accounting. So naturally, under the accrual basis of accounting, revenue recognition become very important. What does it mean? It simply means, when do I recognize the revenue? So let me give you a simple example. I'm an advertising company. Alright? I am vying to get the contract for MobiPhone. I want to do advertising. I want to do print ad and TV ad for MobiPhone. So I put in my bid for the advertising contract, and finally I am awarded the contract, which is a $50 million contract. So my question to you is, do I recognize the revenue, 1, when the contract is awarded, 2, when MobiPhone pays me a deposit, or 3, when I have completed the work and they pay me the total amount due? So your job is to tell me, when do you think I should recognize my revenue? What's my revenue? Providing and producing a TV ad or MobiPhone. 1, 2, or 3? 1 is award, 2 when I collect the deposit, and 3 when I complete the work. Does everybody understand my question? Alright, so what's the answer? Miss 2, what's the answer? You think it's 3. Okay, don't think. Tell me why.
Because, like, on the slide it said that we're gonna recognize the revenue in the accounting period, which the performance obligation is satisfied.
Okay.
So when you finish your work, that's when the performance obligation is satisfied. So we're gonna record the revenue.
Okay, very good. That's a perfect answer. The reason why I record the revenue when I've completed the job, means I am following the rule, which is I have satisfied the performance obligation under the contract. When the contract is awarded, I have not done any work, so I cannot call it revenue. When they pay me a deposit, they're only paying me a deposit to start the work. I have not completed the work. Deposit is like their commitment for me to do the work. Yeah, and she's right. You only recognize the revenue when you have performed the service or you completed your performance obligations. Is this clear or not clear? Yeah, so you now need to know how to do revenue recognition. Now, conversely, we have what is called expense. Now, revenue for me, the advertising company means expense for Mobifone, right? Because they are on the opposite side. So likewise, Mobifone will only record the expense when I have done the work and bill them. Yeah, so you must understand the rule for revenue and expenses must be similar. But for revenue, I call it earned. For expense, I call it incurred. So you must understand matching. Yeah, matching means I must learn how to match revenues with expenses. As you can see at the bottom, it says expense must always follow the revenues. Okay? Is this clear or not clear?
Clear.
Okay, so we do this because of the matching concept. Alright? Any questions? No? No questions? Alright, so these are some very important assumptions in accounting. The top is, of course, the time period assumption, meaning we must make sure transactions are recorded in the correct time period. Then closely below on the left and right side is revenue recognition and expense recognition, means we follow the rules of revenues earned or expenses incurred according to accrual basis of accounting. Why is all this important? Because that is the standard. That is the standard. In the US, the standard is called GAAP, which is Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. Okay, in Vietnam, they call it the Vietnamese Accounting Standard, but they do follow accrual accounting rules. Okay, so please take note. Any questions? No? Are you guys clear? All right, good. So now we move on to the heart of this chapter 3, which is adjusting entries. Now, what do we mean by adjusting entries? We simply want to make sure at the end of the period, all the revenues and expenses are correctly recorded so that my financial information is complete and accurate. So you are going to realize that we need to do this because we want to make sure that our income measurement is correct. Okay, our income measurement is correct, and we want to make sure that we have recognized revenues and recognized expenses following the GAAP rules. What is GAAP? Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. And of course, ideally, every company wants to have one set of financial statements. Meaning what? One income statement and one balance sheet. But the reality is many companies in Vietnam have more than one set of books. Can anybody tell me why? Can anybody tell me why? It's weird, right? Can you tell me why?
I think it's because one book they use to record original data, and the other books they use to like adjusting the record.
Okay, partially right. In Vietnam, like some other countries in Asia, there is a tendency for companies to keep two set of books. One set of books is what they show the government. Because they want to show faith.
Okay.
You understand? And another set of books is the real. You understand what I mean? So please don't leave this classroom thinking there's only one set of books. There is not. Yeah? Some companies are even more creative. They might have a third set or a fourth set, depending on who it is being provided to. Do you understand what I mean? So if you want to keep two set of books, you bloody well be a damn good accountant. Otherwise, if you get caught, what happens?
Jail.
Come on. In Vietnam, every problem can be settled.
Money. A lot of money.
You understand what I'm trying to say here? The point is, that's why it is a very risky job. Yeah, I mean, let's take it very seriously, okay? Because many companies, the main reason why they keep two set of books is to find a way to reduce their tax liability. Yeah, and that's the only motivation to have two set of books. Okay? But with increasing computerization, yeah, it is now not as easy as it was before. Why? Because even the people in the tax office are now also quite well educated. They are not nyakwe. You know what I mean? They know what you are doing. Yeah, and they will find their level best to catch your mistakes.
Yeah.
Because every mistake they catch, they have some opportunity to what? To make some money out of you, right? It's like the police, right? You have a traffic offense or you do something, they love it, right? Because this is the same. This is the problem with the world. Yeah, this is not a situation that is unique to Vietnam. It happens in many countries in Asia. Yeah, so you need to understand there's nothing called one set of books. Yeah, there's always more than one, because the motivation is to try and evade tax, right? Not so much avoid, more bluntly to evade, don't want to pay. Yeah, and some companies always under-declare their incomes, okay? There are two ways to evade tax. You know how you do that? Two ways. There's only two ways. Win, you want to try that? Only two ways to avoid or evade tax. Miss Quinn?
Reduce
Miss Near, right? There's only two ways to avoid tax.
You lie about your income. You say that you have some loss in the investment or capital
Okay.
expense. So
Alright.
your income is not enough.
Okay. So let's ask ourselves the question. Your income is revenue less expenses. Am I right? So when you report to the government, you report less revenue or more expenses. Correct, right? Yeah, you record less income or revenue and more expenses. Why? Because you want to show less profit. Less profit, of course, I want to show loss, so I don't have to pay tax. You see what I mean? So every company does their level best to minimize their revenues and maximize their expenses to reduce their taxable profits. Is this clear or not clear? Yeah, so this is the main reason why in this world where everybody is getting educated, it becomes increasingly difficult to fool somebody else. You understand what I mean? Because the person who's coming to check is smart enough and knows how to check and he knows what he is checking for. You understand what I'm trying to say? So if you are trying to be smart, assuming that he is or she is stupid, you might be unpleasantly surprised. So you can do it deliberately, but you have some way of negotiating. You know what is negotiating, right? Yeah, so this is exactly what is happening, okay, with many companies, and you will find that out soon. Yeah, as you enter the workforce, you will find out. Okay, but I want you to leave this classroom understanding that there is no one set of books. Okay, there's always more than one set of books. Okay, so please remember that's why this concept of adjusting entries is very important. So if you've been listening to what I have said, you should easily know what's the answer to this question.
D. D.
All right, so what's the answer, guys?
D.
What's the best answer?
North the above.
That's the best answer.
C. D.
Huh? Yes, the best answer is D. Yeah? Now don't assume all the best answers are D, okay? But the point here is 1 and 2 is following revenue recognition and expense recognition. And number 3 is making sure that all your income accounts and balance sheet accounts are correctly stated. So the correct answer here is D. Okay? Alright, so we have 2 types of adjusting entries. So please pay attention to the board. Adjusting entry, we got 2 types. We got deferral and we have accrual. And we have 2 types under deferral and 2 types under accrual. One we call prepaid expense. The other one we call unearned revenue. And this one we call accrued expense and accrued revenue. You understand what I mean? So we have 2 types of adjusting entry. Now how do I remember them? Okay, how do I remember them? Look at what I'm writing down in red. Okay, with deferral, the cash transaction is always today. Right? The cash is always recorded first, and the revenue or expense will be recorded tomorrow. Okay, in which case your prepaid expense, you already learned from chapter 1 and chapter 2 is an asset account. And your unearned revenue is a liability account. Alright? Conversely, your accrual. Accrual is cash tomorrow, and revenue or expense is recorded today. So if you can understand this basic concept, you should be able to understand what is the meaning of adjusting entry. Sometimes we might receive the cash before we can recognize the revenue or expense, and sometimes we will record the revenue and expense before we receive the cash or pay the cash. Okay, so we have 2 types of adjusting entries, one that is called deferrals and the other one that is called accruals. So now you can look at the slide and compare with what is written on the board, and if it sinks in your brain, in your head, means you have understood. You have a question? It's clear? Good. Any questions? All right, so in total we have 4 set of adjusting entries. Okay, we have prepaid expense, unearned revenues, accrued expense, and accrued revenues. Okay, but very simply put, deferrals means cash today, revenue and expense tomorrow. Accruals means revenue and expense today, cash tomorrow. Means what? The cash transaction is tomorrow for accruals. The cash transaction is today for deferrals. Why do we call it deferral? Because we are deferring the recognition of revenue and expenses until tomorrow.
What?
Because we record the cash today and we defer. Defer means we only record the revenue and expense tomorrow. Likewise, accrual means I record the revenue and expense today, but I will only collect the cash or pay the cash tomorrow. So when I think about revenues, it's always collection. Money come in. If I think of expenses, it's cash go out. Clear or not clear? Okay, good. Alright, so this is an example of a trial balance. I think you should already know that. Okay, after your adjusting entries, so you can see some of the accounts that will be affected by adjusting entries will be what we are going to cover right now. Okay, so we start with some matching, okay, to make sure you know how to match the items on the left with the items on the right. Tell me, what is the entry I should record today? I want to know debit and credit. What would I do today, on which is October 5th? Who can tell me what I will record on October 5th? This is number 1. What will I do today?
I think the debit would be supply, and the credit is
Debit, supplies, and credit, cash, right? Why? Because look at that side, cash today, right? So how much? 2,500. Am I right? Agreed?
Yes.
Okay, now I need to look at tomorrow. What's tomorrow? October 31st. So again, I need to do a debit and a credit. Now what has happened tomorrow? I have found out I only have 1,000 left. Yeah, I bought 2,500, but now on October 31st I checked, I only have 1,000 left. So what happened? What happened? How much did I use?
1,500.
I use 1,500. So the supplies that I used is called an expense. You understand what I mean? And because my supplies is going down and I want my supplies to show a balance of 1,000, I need to credit supplies for 1,500. You understand? So which means I need to record an expense called supplies expense for 1,500. Any questions? Is this clear or not clear? When are you clear?
Wait me for 1 minute.
The time?
Quite confused about the tomorrow.
Confused about which one?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay, well, I know that tomorrow has arrived and they tell me I only have 1,000 left. So I bought 2,500. I must have only 1,000 left, which means I must have used 1,500. Why? Because 2,500 is what I bought. What I used must have been 1,500 for me to have a stock at the end of the day of 1,000.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
Ms. Chuk, are you clear? You're also a win, right?
Tại tại sao supply vẫn là ngàn nào? Tại vì supply ban đầu. Tại sao? Tại supply ban đầu có 2,500. Xài hết 1,500 để xài trong cái supply.
Quang, are you clear? Long, are you clear? Miss Châu, are you clear? Who's not clear, please? You need to get these concepts clear, otherwise you're gonna have a problem. V,
Bởi vì
both
cái
of
mức
you
đó
clear?
quan trọng tại bạn thầy rồi.
You are T, right? You clear? Quế, you clear? Okay.
Mister.
Yes.
Why only October 31 first? Why the supply still 1,500?
No, supplies is not 1,500. Your supplies account. Okay, think of your account. Okay, I have 2,500 here. This is my supplies account. Yeah, I want this to have a balance of 1,000 at the end of the month. So which means I must have used 1,500 to have a balance. On hand means the balance. That's why I need to debit is plus, this is 1.
Credit ledger.
Credit is 2. Debit, credit, balance.
Nó thì là cái mà mình gửi cái supply
Tim,
xài.
clear? Mr. Dan? Mr. Kwa, clear? Phương, right? No? Did I get it right? Name? Okay, are you clear? Alright, so this is an example of prepaid expense. What does it mean by prepaid expense? I pay the cash today, but I only record the expense tomorrow. What is the expense here? The supplies that I will use. You understand what I mean? Okay, so this is an example of supplies. So we go through another example. This one is insurance. Again, think of today and think of tomorrow. Tomorrow here is October 31st. Are you clear on the example? Sure.
Tôi vẫn thấy khó được lại trên 3 lần try rồi hiểu hết rồi nhưng mà tôi đã hơi confused.
Cái gì?
Cái chữ supply bỏ qua đây. Này thấy không?
Đây là hiểu rồi.
All right, can I have the attendance book back? I assume everybody signed it. You guys signed?
Mình cứ làm cái này này bài nó bỏ qua đây.
You guys have all signed?
Xíu nữa phải chơi.
Okay. Please sign 2 and 3, okay? Session 2 and session 3. This is session 3.
Tao ghi là supply 1.500, còn lại là rate.
6 bếp 50.
Ủa nhưng tại sao supply ở dưới cái supply đây rồi đi xuống. Chỉ có xuống ok đúng. Nhưng mà 31 tháng 5 thì sao lại ghi là supply?
All right, so what do I do tomorrow?
Chỉ ở dạo này thôi.
What will I do tomorrow? John, what will I do tomorrow?
Đâu rồi.
Yeah, so tomorrow is I will always record an expense. Yeah, I always record an expense. So can anybody tell me how did I get 50? Because if you are buying insurance, most of the time, insurance payments are either annual, half yearly, or quarterly. Very seldom it's monthly. So in this case, I paid insurance for the whole year, and it worked out to be $600. So which means every month my insurance expense is $50. So I record 50 as the expense for the month of October. Is this clear or not clear? All right, so this is again another example of prepaid expense. Okay, so let's do another example of which is called depreciation. Now, you will learn more about depreciation in chapter 10 later, but you can think of depreciation as the accountant's way of recognizing the usage expense of a fixed asset. What do I mean by that? Let's say the company or the business bought some fixed assets like maybe buildings or equipment or furniture or motor vehicles. Now, the reason why the business bought those assets is to be able to use it in the business. So, because we are using it for the business, we need to recognize the fact that every month of usage is actually decreasing the value of the asset. Because you take a car, does the car appreciate in value or depreciate in value?
Depreciate.
Yes, a car will always depreciate in value. It's like your handphone. You bought your handphone 2 years ago. Is it worth the same today?
Tại sao?
Why is it not worth the same today?
New product, new design.
Yes, because some new product has come and also you have used the old product, so it's no longer new. Yeah, so accountants have decided that we will call that usage expense depreciation. Alright, so depreciation actually is not a valuation concept, it's a cost allocation. allocation concept. So when I buy the motor vehicle for my business, I must decide how long I'm going to use it. Maybe 8 years, 10 years. If I bought it for 30,000, it means every year I will record a depreciation expense of 3,000. Yeah, if I bought equipment for $40,000 and I said I'm going to use it over 8 years, means every year my depreciation expense will be 5,000. So depreciation is like a usage expense, but accountants, we call it a cost allocation concept, which means when I buy the asset, I must decide how long I plan to use it. So most of you might use your handphones for at least 4, possibly 5 years, right? Because you are a student. But later when you start working, maybe you might replace them more often. Why is that? Because you have your own income. Yeah? Now you are using your parents' income. Yeah, but as when you start using your own income, you might replace, but nobody replaces cars every 2 or 3 years. Unless, of course, you are very rich. Yeah? You can buy it every day, you can have a new car. You know what I mean? But this is the concept. Is this clear? So let's look at an example. In this case, let's assume the equipment I bought was 4,800, and I decided I'll be able to use that equipment for 10 years, which means my depreciation every year is $480. Another way to say is every month my depreciation is $40. Yeah? So in this case, the depreciation expense is accumulated in an account called accumulated depreciation. I don't reduce my cost account. I create another account called accumulated depreciation, which serves as a contra asset account so that I can present it in my financial statements in this format. I keep the cost unchanged, but I have another line or another account called accumulated depreciation that keeps track of the monthly depreciation charge, such that when I have completely depreciated the asset, means it will be zero. So anybody who looks at this will know that, yeah, the cost was 5,000 and the current accumulated depreciation is $40 because it has only completed 1 month of use. So from the accumulated depreciation account, I can easily verify the age of the asset. Yeah, I can easily verify the age of the asset. So if the accumulated depreciation is very high, I know this is not a new asset. If the accumulated depreciation is very low, I know that it's a recent and fairly new asset. So it's an intelligent way to know what is the age of the asset. You understand what I mean? Yeah, so that's why we have a separate account and it's called a contra asset account. Why? An asset account, I told you in the last class, always has a debit balance. Correct or not? But this is a contra asset account because it is shown in the asset section of the balance sheet, but it has a credit balance. It is shown in the asset section of the balance sheet, but it has a credit balance. Therefore, it's called a contra asset account. Alright, so moving on to the next one is unearned revenue. So please look at what is written down for unearned revenue. So again, this is the opposite of prepaid expenses. Unearned revenue is the opposite of prepaid expenses. So here I received the cash today, but I can only record the revenue tomorrow. So look at the transaction today will always be a cash transaction. The transaction tomorrow will always be a revenue recording transaction. So in this example here, today I would have recorded debit cash and credit unearned revenue. Yeah, in this example today, which is October 2nd, I would have debit my cash account and credit my unearned revenue. Why is it unearned on October 2nd? Because I have not done the work yet. I've not done the work yet, but they give me a advance payment. Yeah, they give me an advance payment, but tomorrow when I have done some work, which is 400, I will debit unearned revenue and credit my revenue account. So it has now become earned. I've now earned 400 from the 1,200. Is this clear or not clear?
Chị này ở tên số hiệu ai coi đi số hiệu nào này số hiệu đang bật cho xíu nhận hai
Clear or not clear?
clear
Not clear? Okay, what is not clear? Okay, let's look back to what happened on October 2nd, alright? So, can I erase this?
Yes. Nhưng quen hai khi mà qua hàng năm không về.
cái này mình nhận tiền trước nhưng mà nó không được phép đi cho làm cơ bản là cái công việc của kế hoạch.
Okay, so what happened today was I debit cash and I credit unearned revenue for 1,200. Alright, now tomorrow I'm told I can recognize 400 from the 1,200. So tomorrow I will debit unearned revenue and credit revenue for 400. Why I can credit revenue? Because I am told I have now earned the revenue. You understand now? Sorry, name again? Minh. One. Anybody else who does not understand this? Sorry, the girl next to Man, I forgot your name. You are? Yeah.
Cái bạn này vẫn chưa hiểu nhá.
Nhi, okay. You understand? Okay, why? Because I told you, look at the formula, look at the description here. Unearned revenue is a liability. Yeah, so when I collect the money, I don't actually own that money. That money belongs to somebody else. Why? Because I haven't done the work yet. If I don't do the work, I need to return back the money. I just give you a deposit. Yeah, so if you don't do the work, hey, please give me back my money. Yeah, so that's why unearned revenue is a liability. Yeah, it's a liability because I have not done the work. But now I'm telling you, I have done $400 worth of work. So I can reduce my liability and increase my income. Reduce my liability by debit to unearned revenue and increase my revenue by $400.
Phải trả người ta lại.
Quang, are you clear now?
Còn ở dưới credit là mình có cái tiền đó. Cái tiền này là
Nhi, are you clear? Okay, good.
tiền dịch vụ.
And the girl next to Nhi, your name again?
Mấy cái này đọc sai sách.
Như? Như, one, two. And you next to Nhi, Như? Sorry? Duyên, okay. Alright, so do we have any questions? So this is unearned revenue. It's the opposite of prepaid expenses. So how do I remember this during my test and exams? You need to think of it in terms of today and tomorrow as what I have put down here. So we will ask you in the test and exam what you are supposed to do tomorrow. That means today already given to you. You just need to know what you're going to do tomorrow. Is this clear or not clear? All right? All right, so assuming everything I've said is clear, please tell me what I am supposed to do tomorrow with 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to give you 5 minutes.
Con cái làm nữa là có trong này mà có slide này là bỏ bớt gộp lại 2 slide. It should inspire the break. That's right. Nó sẽ credit cash và debit insurance. Adjusting entry đó là những cái debit credit đúng không các bạn? Mà là đâu cái inspire này nó vào cái QA nè, sửa lại không? Đúng không? Cũng là cái điện này đúng không? 800 trên 800 là một cung cộng vào accumulate credit. Credit là có chứ. Vậy accumulate là nó tự dựa vào debit chứ. Đúng không? Bởi vì nó tạo ra một trăm này là mỗi tháng giờ mày trả 3.600, mỗi tháng mày sẽ có được 100 thì bảo hiểm không expire. Cái expire này là mỗi tháng mình thì ý là mình sẽ phải trả 100.000 thì nè tổng là 3.600, cái repay này là 3.600 đúng không? Mỗi tháng thì mình trả 100.000 là mình có được 100.000. Trả 100 thì có 100 thì trả 100 đấy là nó là insurance, còn là debit insurance, còn cash là credit card thôi. Cái gì có 100 mà chỉ là credit và debit. Cái nào là debit thì cái expense của insurance là debit, cash là credit. Nếu phải cash nó là repay insurance thì nó là repay insurance. Nó đâu nó là credit rồi. Nó sẽ là spending mất 2.000 là supply expenses là cái nào cái nào debit supply mất 2.000 thì là supply expenses có 2.000. Supply expenses là 2.000 bên debit, supply là 2.000 ở credit. Không, cái này nó sẽ phải credit lại supply. Vậy là còn credit là 3.000 bởi vì nó mất đi 2.000, nó sẽ là credit. Thì tao nói là supply expenses là debit có 2.000, còn ở dưới là supply là credit. Mày nói gì? Mày chết ta coi. Nè, là ở trên, đang nói ở trên xuống á. Ở trên xuống là nó từ debit với credit. cái đầu tiên cái này supply expenses sẽ có 2.000 là ở bên debit,
Alright, 2 more minutes, huh?
còn supply sẽ mất 2.000 là ở bên credit, tại vì này còn có 800 thôi. Cái supply và một cái supply expense
nó sẽ credit
này, giống như cái ví dụ
chắc là
nãy,
mày nói nó bị luôn.
tại mày nghe không nghe kịp chứ không phải là nói nhau, tao nói mấy lần đó. Depreciate 200,
Đúng rồi.
depreciate thì là depreciate,
Cái gì đó trong tương lai thì
vậy là
một tháng 200.
vậy depreciate nó sẽ ở credit, thì ở trên là gì?
cái phí ô tô đấy
Thì cái debit là x mình là 200 debit, còn phía dưới là
Depreciate
depreciation là credit.
mình mua nguyên băng 6 tháng
couplet
số kiểu thì mình vừa trả
cái này à, cái này depreciate
Cái này là phí hao tổn, cái này là gì?
credit là tiền có quăng
credit insurance bình thường nó sẽ nằm ở debit, nhưng mà mình credit nó nghĩa là mình giảm nó, mình trừ đi nó, tại vì debit hiểu không, là cái insurance này đáng ra nó ở debit nè,
cái đấy đúng cậu nó trong cái gì này thích
Living Max
cái này là dấu cộng,
form
dấu cộng của nó là debit,
đúng
bây giờ tao trừ
rồi
vậy là service over firm for one half earn, vậy là earn.
The first one, you know what you need to record tomorrow is always debit to an expense account and credit your prepaid expense. Okay, it's a standard entry. Second one is, you know, you need to record a supplies expense. So in this case, your supplies expense will be 2,000. Yeah? The next one is your depreciation. Again, you debit a depreciation expense account and you credit your accumulated depreciation. So in the case of the first three, you know you must record a debit to an expense account. Yeah, and the credit is always to an asset account. Okay, so it's a debit to an expense account and credit to an asset account means that is an example of prepaid expense. Okay, and then the last one is your unearned revenue. Again, you will debit your unearned revenue for 4,600 because half. Yeah, you recognize half, so the half will be 4,600. Okay, so this should make you understand about the first part of your adjusting entries, which are called deferrals. So now we look at accruals. Again, we have accrued revenues, which you already learned something about in the last topic. So again, you need to think of it in terms of today and tomorrow. So today is October 31st. Tomorrow is November 10th. So with accrued revenues, cash transaction is always tomorrow. But revenue transaction is today. So today means October 31st. So what should I record today and what should I record tomorrow?
Cash dấu cộng dấu trừ á, nếu như nó tăng, ví dụ đi ALE asset là debit, nếu như asset mà tăng á thì cái debit của nó sẽ tăng, còn nếu như asset mà giảm thì nó sẽ tăng vào cái credit, được không? Nhớ cái đó không?
Mà sao? Thì sao nữa?
Vậy thôi, cứ tăng giảm mà chia theo cái debit credit. Mày nhớ cái bảng đó không?
Ý là sẽ không biết, tụi ta hiểu cái đó mà sẽ không biết điền cái gì vô đây nè.
Điền cái đó hả?
Tụi ta không có biết điền cái gì, chứ tiền tăng giảm bên nào thì tụi ta biết. Ví dụ như đọc cái này tụi ta biết là cái nào sẽ là debit, cái nào credit, nhưng mà không biết cái nào là cái nào á, là điền cái gì để vô đúng á. Chứ tụi ta hiểu cái này là số Việt này, cái số Việt này sẽ mất 200, rồi mình bỏ ra 200 để mình làm kiểu.
Alright, so what's happened today is I must record the revenue. Right, look at what's on the right side. Cash is always tomorrow, revenue is always today, so I will record the revenue today. In this example will be 200. And because I have not received the cash yet, I will record it as receivable. Yeah, receivable today becomes received tomorrow. When I credit my receivable account, it means I have received. Happy, right? You know what is the definition of satisfaction? Knowing that you got the entry correct. That's if you're an accountant, okay? If you're an accountant, getting the entry correct is satisfaction. So is this clear or not clear? Clear? Alright, good. So let's look at another example of accrued expense. Again, accrued expense means I record the expense today, but I'll have to pay it tomorrow. So in this example, the example is interest. I don't need to remind you. You all know how to calculate interest. Assume I borrowed 5,000 and assume I have to pay interest at 12% annually. It simply means every month my interest will be $50. So in which case I will record it as interest expense and interest payable. Now, interestingly, with accrued revenues, I will create a receivable account. And with accrued expenses, it will always create a payable account. Why? Because cash is going to happen tomorrow. Meaning what? I'm going to receive cash if it's account receivable, and I'm going to pay cash if it's accounts payable.
Tại sao nhân cho 1/12 ta chưa được gọi?
Bữa đi Sài Gòn Vũng Tàu
Lại mỗi tháng là 50.
0.1 cho học đúng rồi. Vừa mới thi xong mà đi còn mấy bữa cái gì mình làm 1%
1% không phải đi.
còn cái gì vừa mới thi xong nhiều trường thi xong bắt đầu nhiều trường còn nghỉ hè luôn.
Is this clear or not clear? So in the case of accrued revenues, remember it will always create a receivable account. Why? Because tomorrow you are going to receive the cash. And accrued expense is the opposite of accrued revenues, where you have to pay the cash tomorrow. So accrued expenses create payable, accrued revenues create receivable. Is this clear or not clear?
Receivable assets and payable liability.
Yes? No? Okay? Not okay? Anybody wants me to explain again? explain again. Which one? This one? All right, so when we call something an accrued expense, it simply means I'm going to record the expense today, but most probably I'm going to pay the expense tomorrow. And because I haven't paid it yet, I create what is called a payable account. Yeah, interest payable, salary payable, rent payable. So any account that's got payable at the end of it should tell you it is a liability, meaning I will have to pay cash tomorrow. Any account which has got receivable means it's an asset today because I will receive the cash tomorrow. Are you clear? Okay, good. All right, so let's do a wrap up. I'm going to give you 5 minutes.
Tức là tháng sau á, nghĩa là trong nhân công đi sử dụng tiền lương của bạn này để tháng sau để chi trả, nhưng nó sẽ trả đầu tháng, không phải trả trước. Cái salary and wage thuộc tiền của liability đúng không? Salary and wage nó là thuộc vào expense, còn nếu mà nó là salary and wage payable nó sẽ là vào liabilities. Nếu mà nó không có payable thì nó sẽ là ở trong expense. Nếu có payable thì nó sẽ là tính theo 31 August là nó là payable, mà còn nếu mà tính theo 1 thì nó mới là expense, đúng không? Vì 31 nó vẫn giữ và nó cả 31 cái gì vậy, nó tức là nó cuối tháng.
Dơ đánh bài có nghĩa là mày là hay mua nè, tao làm cho mới Bình Dương lên ngon lắm. Nãy giờ uống thì cái này là nhưng mà thấy chưa, 30.000 nhưng 3.000 thì mình làm cái này là làm hôm ngày 31, đúng không? Mình lương là ngày mai mới trả, đúng không? Đúng không? Thì tức là bây giờ mày đang nợ một nhân viên, một nhân viên cái công việc của nó rồi
3.000 chia 12 nhiều, 3.000 chia 10 chia 12
còn nó hoàn thành công việc rồi, nhưng mà mày không đưa tiền
50
tính theo nhân viên thì nó có cái shippable là 800. Nếu mà
có rồi
không
annual
đúng nhiều tính hơn cái này đang tính cho công ty mà thì đang tính cho công ty thì nói qua mình nói bị nhầm rồi kia.
okay, annual interest rate receivable Tết đồng
thì là cái này sẽ là 800
Expense salary expense nó là 800,
Sorry, the girl next to V.
còn nhưng bởi vì nó trở ra payable nó sẽ là còn ngày mình cái này nó sẽ thuộc liability, thì cash trong asset nó sẽ tăng lên và đồng thời nó sẽ payable.
khoan còn interest nữa. Annual vậy là sẽ là 0.1%, là 1% 10 chia 12 là nhiêu?
mày làm sao sao nó coi
12 mày chỉ ghi 10% chia 12
Là 1.2%. Rồi thì mẹ cái máy tính rồi 1.2%. Giờ là 30.000 với 1.2% 115 năm.
thì tức là
Mỗi năm trả nhiêu?
Cái này cũng trong 15 năm. Tức là chia được tháng 30 chia đầu tiên 30 chia 15 nhân với 1,2%.
Đúng
Từ đó
mà có thêm
15 năm mà. Cái này là lãi kép đúng không?
Nó sẽ tăng 830.000 từ ngân hàng chưa payable payable là 830.000
Từ từ nào. Trong 15 năm
chia 15
nhưng mà này mày đang tính theo annual mà sao mày
chia 15 đấy mày, chia 15 năm sao mày tính đâu có được đâu mày.
từ nào.
mày tính theo tháng mà.
Là mày phải
Annual interest.
cái đầu mình học là phải chia 15.
Đang tính theo tháng mà. Tại như này là tháng 1, tháng 8, 1 tháng 8.
Thì nó đơn giản là
Còn cái này lãi, còn cái lãi này là đang là lãi
từ
1 năm mà.
thì thế mình chia 12 1 năm 12 tháng mà. Thì cái này chia 12 nhưng mà 15 là nhân trên này chứ. Thì cái này đây là tổng cái là tổng sau 3 năm chưa cho 12.
Trả rồi revenue tăng nhưng mà cái ấn ơn. Ồ bây giờ mình chia
Câu bơi làm sao ạ?
hả? Nó chia vậy mày thấy sao? Mày thấy sao coi giống không?
Có buồn không?
Salary expense là 800 ở debit.
Đâu nè. Đầu tiếp đi payable là cái giảm.
No, payable dấu cộng. Credit. Payable là liability.
Nó giảm luôn. Vậy là đúng rồi đem cái gì được nguyên.
Câu 2 làm sao?
Nha. Cái này là kép hay là lãi đơn?
Hả?
Cái này là kép hay lãi đơn? Bởi vì nếu lãi kép tao tính cho tao nha.
Payable là giảm chứ.
30.000 này nhân với 10% một năm đúng không?
Mình chưa trả anh ta.
Mình tính cho 8 chia cho 12.
Chưa trả anh ta. Mình chưa trả anh ta 800.
Và nó là trong kỳ hạn 15 năm.
À rồi
Nó
ok.
sẽ là 12 nhân với 15.
Mình trả
Đúng không?
anh ta vào lúc 19.
Sau cái này là trong 15 năm đến 4 năm chia cho 15 chia 12. Thì mỗi tháng nó
cái payable là nó giảm ngay bởi vì nó tính mỗi tháng.
thì tao nghĩ là lãi kép không đúng mà
Cứ đầu
nó
mỗi tháng
phải
là nó
đơn.
giảm. Ừ. Còn ba
Cái này là tăng
15 tháng hay là 15 năm?
15 năm.
Revenue là nó tăng 15 cái
Alright, 2 more minutes, huh?
Thì cái này
Là 15 năm đó. Không có dấu gạch là 15 years.
Ủa?
Lãi đơn là sao?
lãi đơn là tháng này thì tức là mỗi tháng cái lãi nó đều như nhau, tức là lãi đều như nhau thì nó không kiểu là lãi gộp lãi.
Ủa revenue là thằng cái này được thì mày phải chia 15 để nó là tính theo ấy.
Revenue
Là nhiều.
giờ 28.
Ủa thì nãy tao cũng bấm
Sai đó, không đúng thì này không cách tính này sai, cách tính này sai.
Là nó nhầm một con. Ừ.
Ủa nè, cái bài mẫu nãy tính y chang gì luôn á.
Phải revenue 11.
Tại vì
Có khi nào nó nhầm 15 với 12 không?
mình mà bây giờ mình nói sao ta?
Nè, nó nhăn hết rồi luôn rồi.
À, nó đã trả mình rồi đó hả? Nhưng chưa ghi vào tháng. Revenue trong 15 năm revenue là nó thiếu.
Nếu mà tính thế này thì nó chưa
Thiếu.
nó chưa hay đến cái
Trong 15.
15 năm chắc.
Còn cô ba đi, đại cô lấy hỏi cô ba đi. Vậy là sẽ là có một cái cột là revenue.
Ok.
Alright, so let's go through the answers, okay? So number 1, number 2, and number 3. Any questions?
Number 2.
Right, number 2, why?
How to calculate it?
How to calculate the what?
The 250.
Alright, 1 year is 15%, right? What is, sorry, 1 year is 10%.
Yes.
30,000 times 10% is 3,000,
Yes.
right? So what is it every month?
So what about 15 years mortgage?
Yeah, that is just to tell you you're borrowing for 15 years. Yeah, you're borrowing for 15 years. Normally when people buy a house, a housing loan is called a mortgage. Not many people can buy a house and pay for it in 5 years. So mortgages typically are 10 up to 22 years, depending on how old you are. So if you buy a house early in life, you can take a longer mortgage. But if you buy a house later in life, you take a shorter mortgage because everything is calculated based on the number of working years you have left. Alright? So mortgage, 15 year is not to be considered. 15 year is just to tell you that they borrowed for 15 years. But in this example, your interest is 10% times 30,000. So your monthly interest is $250. Is it clear now? 3,000 is 1 year. So 1 month is 250. How do I get that? 3,000 divided by 12. 3,000 divided by 12 is 250. Alright, so is everybody clear on this? Yeah, are you clear? Alright, good. So let's look at a summary. Very useful slide. Tells you what you need to know about all the adjusting entries. Alright? So you should remind yourself when I'm dealing with prepaid expenses, I will be recording an expense tomorrow. Right? When I think of unearned revenues, I know I will be recording a revenue tomorrow. When I think of accrued revenues, I'll be recording the revenue today. And when I think of accrued expenses, again, I will be recording the expense today. When I record a revenue or expense today, it means I will record the cash tomorrow. If I record the cash today, means I will record the revenue and expense tomorrow. Alright, so this is a summary, but again, luckily in the next class, we'll be doing some exercises, so you have an opportunity to master, adjusting entries, okay? So we'll have to wait for the next session to be doing some exercises to master the adjusting entries. Now, there is a trial balance exercise. I'm not doing this in the class, so you should go back and review it. If you do not understand, you should ask me in the next class, but I will be posting. See, my slides is just combining them and making them into one. Some of these slides are already in your lecture slides, but I made it convenient based on the key concepts. Alright? So you should reference these for your learning. Okay, but you need to look at the do it exercise, and you also have the answers. So I don't need to walk through them with you in the class. You should be able to do it in your own time. Okay, so I would suggest we take a break, maybe a 2-minute break.